All right. So yeah, no, let's dive right into it. So deploying Cisco CAKV on Megaport. So what does this kind of look like at the end of the day? So MVE is Megaport Virtual Edge. It's essentially one of the access methods in which someone can potentially pull traffic, bring traffic into our network. And then once you're on our network, really getting into our network's the hard part. Once you're on our network, you can reach to any of our destinations that we have available to you. It's really simple from that point forward. And one of the ways in which we can do this is with the MVE. Essentially what it is it's virtual compute that we're allocating for you to spin up a virtual router within our network. And then by using our internet service and connecting into the internet, right, we can now build IPsec tunnels, maybe have SD-WAN running, and this becomes an alternate access method for actually getting onto our network. But you can also use this just in conjunction as a normal router potentially, if you're hooking this up to the rest of your environment. So let's say you were connecting into Megaport via a port, you can use an MVE with a CAKV image on it potentially, and just do straight up routing between your cloud providers, or maybe deploy an FTDV and you want to do edge firewall security, or is just zone control between the different cloud providers you have to give you some east-west protection between them. So a lot of different ways in which you can kind of use this. But specifically with the CAKV, which we're kind of going to be talking about today, there's really 3 different ways to deploy this because of the flexibility of the platform. It's kind of the Swiss Army knife in the routing world, right? So the ways in which we kind of want to describe real quick is you have it in autonomous mode. And autonomous mode, right, is where it's not necessarily talking to any SD-WAN controllers. It's just a regular router on the network, independent of everything else. And you just want it to configure it via CLI and just get it running. And so we definitely support it inside autonomous mode. And I'll walk through the steps as far as what you need to do to be able to deploy it. The key things is you're going to need an RSA SSH key to actually bring this up, because this is how we're going to secure it at the end of the day, for you to be able to get in. And management through this is done through internet access, but you can also use that for data plane as well. So one way in which we can do this is autonomous mode. The second way is via inside SD-WAN mode. So if we deploy it as an SD-WAN mode and we create a device template and attach it to it, we can potentially deploy this via a cloud init file. And by more or less pre-building that out inside our SD-WAN controllers, our vManage, we can then take that cloud init file, bring it over to Megaport when we're standing this up, and then that will also pre-configure the device and bring it online and have it join our overlay essentially. And then the final way is via SCCI. So Cisco's a great partner with Megaport, and one of the integrations they've done was more or less tying Megaport into vManage via SDCI. It's this cloud on-ramp via multicloud and function, and what it essentially lets you do is you can deploy Megaport MVEs and edges straight from the vManage without having to interact with Megaport's portal at all. And then even connect it to cloud providers without even having to go through cloud provider portals either. So it allows you kind of as a one-stop shop for essentially being able to build that connectivity end to end. If you were going to, say you wanted to run SD-WAN inside Megaport and then connect it to multiple cloud service providers, that's definitely an option here, which is kind of cool. But there's 3 ways in which we can do this. And I'll walk through all 3 as far as what you can do. So without further ado, let's jump over to the portal real quick. And let's stand up one in autonomous mode real quick. So, all right, I have one kind of live right now. It's because there is a little bit of a boot up period and bringing these up, normally like 5 to 10 minutes potentially for one to actually come online. SD-WAN probably going to be closer to around 10 minutes because I believe there is a reboot cycle that happens after it phones home through orchestrator to vManage to where it needs to get its config and sync. So there is a little bit of time to bring these live. So might not necessarily see all of them come up, but I do have one in autonomous mode right now, which I can kind of show you, hey, here's how we SSH into this at the end of the day. We'll go through it from there. But if we wanted to bring up one in autonomous mode, let's bring up a new one. We'll actually go over here inside services, inside our Megaport portal, and I'm going to say create MVE. Right, and so we have a lot of different flavors in which we support, right? Meraki we have it in Meraki's on its way as far as going into public beta. So if you're interested in Meraki, we can start working to get that going and see how we can kind of fulfill your use case. But let's actually go over here into Cisco C8000 and let's choose a version. Now for this, I'm just going to pick the most recent version at 1716. Where this is going to be relevant probably is if you're bringing this up in SD-WAN mode, you just want to make sure that you are matching the controller version that you're on. Otherwise, if I, like, let's say my controllers were on 20.12 and I deployed a 1716 code, it's not going to match up and it will probably constantly reboot, go up, go down. So you want to match it in that scenario. 1712 is probably the version you'd want to go to. But for this, I'm going to go with 1716 and hit next. All right, now we need to pick our data centers. Right, any of the locations, if you go to, right, Megaport locations, you can see here any of the locations in which we have MVEs available, we can deploy the CAKV. So for this, I'm actually Seattle local. So I'm going to deploy it probably within this area right here. So I'm going to go back over here, say Seattle. All right, and then select a data center I want to deploy this in. So for this one, let's go with maybe, let's go with the Sabi Intergate. I'm going to select, right? We have different sizing, right? 2.8, 416, 832, 1664. And this is really how much virtual CPU we're allocating for the deployment. For this kind of being a demo, I'm just going to go with something small. So I'll go with the 2.8, which is available at this location. I'm going to put this on no term just for right now, but we do support up to 3-year term for, you know, savings as far as monthly rate. But I'm going to select no term right there, hit next. And then here's where I need to select the mode. So you're going to see, right, SD-WAN and autonomous mode. This being for autonomous, I'm just going to hit that. And then now I need to paste in my public RSA key that I generated out. So pulling that up here. Let's see, here we are. If I copy this over, that should be good to go. And then now I just need to add in any VNICs in which I kind of want to associate with this. For right now, we can go up to 5 potentially. And how this is going to actually allocate is it's going to be Gig Ethernet 1 is going to allocate to VNIC 0. Gig Ethernet 2 is going to allocate to VNIC 1, and so on and so forth. We can do up to 5 here, but the reality is with how the CAKV is, 1 is sufficient for typically what you need, because at the end of the day, what we're going to be doing, we can support up to 25 connections, virtual cross connects coming into this guy. And how we'll actually be building that out is via separate sub interfaces and putting a different VLAN tag for each sub interface. So that way we can have one physical interface and potentially scale this out to, you know, it's like 10, 20 gig VXCs, you know, but because it's a virtual interface, right, it can size up to that amount and it's not a big deal. So for right here, you know, let's just say 3, why not? And I'm just going to say GE1. All right, let's just say GE2, GE3. So we know kind of how this maps to at the end of the day. All right, I'm going to go with no minimum term, hit next. Let's give it a name. I'm just going to call it Tech Drop-In Auto. And that looks good. So we should see our VNICs showing up right here, right? This is the version we're going to go with. And all of this looks good. So I'm going to say add MVE. Now we need an internet connection. So I'm just going to say create internet. Closest internet, right? Sub 1 millisecond round trip. I'm going to go with that. That sounds wonderful. We'll hit next. And I'm just going to give it a rate of 100 megs. Right now, for this to come up on the first time, this is kind of key. We want this to go on VNIC 0 untagged. And the reason why this is relevant is when this comes up for the very first time, that's set up to receive a DHCP address, which we'll get from our internet service and be able to come up online. And from there, you'll be able to SSH into it and manage the router from that point on and configure it as you need to. But this is kind of key for it, at least coming up for the first time. Mind you, it doesn't necessarily need to be connected via the internet. If you have a private connection in which you're providing your DHCP connection, so you're already on Megaport and you have something that can provide a DHCP address, we can connect it to that, and then it would receive that DHCP address and come online and be reachable from that other service. So there's a couple of other ways in which we can kind of do this, but internet's kind of the easy button. We're securing this with an RSA key, so this should be fine. We're gonna hit no term, next, add VXC. All right, and then this should be good to go. I'm gonna say review order, and order now. And then we're gonna see the service spinning up. So as that's coming online, right, I mentioned before I have one that's kind of already operational. So to actually get into this one, we're going to want to go into the gear icon next to our internet service. And we want to know what IP address we actually got assigned on this, right, in order to be able to SSH to it. So let's go into details, right? And we can actually see in here, inside the internet service, what IPs we actually got allocated as part of this. So we see, all right, here's our gateway at .40. Assigned IPv4 address looks like it's .41, so I'll SSH to that guy. So I am going to bring up my console right here. All right, and then pull it up. And so all I'm doing is SSH. I'm calling in my private key that I used to as part of the key I generated, and then connecting to MVE admin. This will be the default login initially for any time you're trying to connect and manage this guy. So MVE admin initially at my IP address, which is .41 right here. All right, so hit enter. Do the passphrase from my key. And then we're good to go. We're actually in the device, and we can see here, we can pull a show run real quick, see how it's configured. We do a show IP interface brief. Right, so I only allocated this with one VNIC, but we see, right, it's assigned to Gig Ethernet 1, IP address 162.143.1, and it's receiving it via DHCP. So this looks good. If I wanted to configure a VXC, I could just go in here, say interface Gig 1 dot, let's say 20, right, and just give this, an in cap of 1.q dot, .1q20, right, and then I can give this an IP address of maybe 10.0.0.1. 0, right, and then this would be good to go. If I wanted to connect to something that is, let's say I wanted AWS to connect through this VLAN VXC to something else at the other side of this IP address. So a couple of ways, easy to kind of get going. So the next way, autonomous mode kind of done there. Let's go through the SD-WAN way of doing this. So actually out of here, and we log into our SD-WAN controllers. Right, so I'm in vManage right now. And the first way is, first, we need to take a device, virtual device that we built out, and then assign it a device template. Okay, so normally inside the account, you would need to go into Plug and Play Connect on the Cisco's portal, which is reachable via software.cisco.com. Create a virtual appliance, in which case it will generate a key for you. So if I go into, and to showcase that a little bit more, let's go into devices, right? You more or less need these chassis numbers to get generated. You would do that in Plug and Play Connect from Cisco's webpage, and then sync that up with your account via, either Sync Smart Account or something to that effect. But we're essentially going to take one of these guys that I already have pre-listed inside here, and then we need to apply it to a template. Now, I understand we haven't deployed anything in the Megaport side yet, which is fine. We'll do that eventually and just tie it to this with the cloud init file. But we need to get it on a template. So I'm going to go over into configurations, hit templates right here. All right. And normally you might not have a template ready for this, but a good place to start is if you go into your defaults and you run a search for Megaport for your device templates, right? There is a default Megaport template you can use initially to get this going. My only recommendation here is just make sure you change your AAA settings so that you're securing it with a password of your choice. And you make sure that you're locking this down before bringing it online. But this should be enough to get you going initially, and then editing that device template with your own custom settings, like how are you doing your service VPNs, and then tying that stuff into there going forward. All right, but this seems like a decent enough place to start. So I'm just going to copy it. Just call it tech drop-in template. All right, and then if I go to my non-default ones, I see it right here. Okay, perfect. So now we need to get devices applied to this. So I'm going to attach a device and just choose one at random right here. All right, and to get this going, we just need to specify our color, give it a host name. And give it a system IP and a site ID. And I think that should be good. Right, and if you want, you can check and see kind of what config is needed. It's very bare bones just to get this up and running, right? Because all we need to do is just associate this with the tunnel interface. So that it's actually just phoning home. We don't have this necessarily tied right now to a service VPN. So pretty simple to actually get this operational. I'm just going to say configure device. All right, and it's going to schedule it because it's not online yet. But if I go over into my devices, go back over to that page, we should see our guy right here. And we want to be able to download our device. So if I go in here and I say generate bootstrap configuration, and I make sure cloud init is checked, I'm going to say okay. All right, and it will download the bootstrap file. All right, so I got it right here, CE8, CE4, just so I know. Okay, so I've got my cloud init file. Now let's jump back over to the portal. And let's go into MVE. And then once again, we're going to hit CAKV. Now, like I said, we need to make sure this is version matching. So I'm actually going to jump back over, I believe, right, for our SD-WAN deployment. We are on 2012 right now. So we want to make sure that this second digit matches essentially is at least less than or equal to the second digit for the CAKV versions. So for this 20.5, right, I'm going to go back over to Megaport portal. All right, and I'm going to go with this one because this is at least less than that value. So that'll be the version I'll go with. All right, and then let's pull up Seattle again. So I think we used the last available CPU capacity for Savvy. So I'm actually going to go with the Weston building here. Select him. Go with no monthly term. Hit next. And then let's select SD-WAN mode. So now we see we need to attach a cloud init file. I'm going to attach that file that we just downloaded. And we can add in additional VNICs if we want to. I think it's going to be fine as is with just one. So let's hit next. Give it a name. Hit add MVE. And then once again, we're going to need internet. So we just go through those same exact steps that we did before. Keeping it on, yep, untagged on our first VNIC. And then this looks good. This one will start coming up. All right. So, and that's the second way. As soon as this comes online, you're going to see it start syncing with the deployment. It will show up as available on the monitoring tab. And yeah, we'll see it come live. The other way in which you can stand stuff up is via cloud on ramp from multicloud. Now, there's some prereqs to actually getting this going. It's worth noting, right? So for one, if we click on navigation, and interconnect is essentially what is being defined as Megaport in this case. as we're kind of going to be your gateway in reaching out the other cloud services. Cloud on-ramp for multi-cloud on Cisco's vManage is used for if you want to deploy SD-WAN directly inside a cloud provider. So for this, we're going to be working, mostly with the right side here if you're trying to deploy something inside Megaport. So the key thing, though, is just make sure, right, that you have your accounts added in, that you're actually going to be associating this with. And if not, you can always go to add accounts and so on and so forth and go from there. But and then also make sure that you have some global settings actually set up here for how, you want Megaport to kind of be treated in this scenario. So it's like by default, we're going to deploy on 17.12 version because that's our controllers. We're going to make sure that it's instance small. And then for private connections, we're going to make it private 6, right? And for some inner gateway connections for SD-WAN, we might put it in private 2. And this would be the default BGP ASN we'll end up using. So all that kind of looks good. We can then go back over. Yeah, I'll tell you what. Click back over right here. And I would just need to hit gateway to add. So after here, I would provide a name essentially. So we could just call this tag drop in CI. All right, I'm going to put this inside Megaport Lab as far as the Megaport account we're tying this back to. I'm going to give this a location. In the scenario, we can go with, there we go, Vocative in Seattle. Give it a site name. Oh, so skipped a prereq here. I apologize. We need, before all of this, we need to make sure that we are actually tying this back to a device that we already have pre-deployed. So in the same steps that we did last time, we just go into that same template that we had created. All right, so our tech drop-in template. Let's go ahead and attach a device. And so it still needs the same basic template, even if we're doing it via SDCI mode. So let's configure this right here. We'll say DCI, we'll call this 2020. All right. Looks good. And we'll just say configure device. And then now if we jump back over, right, as that's getting scheduled up, we can say add gateway. Choose the provider again, Megaport. Gateway name. All right, and then from there, Megaport Lab, choose the location. Seattle Vocative. All right, choose a site. And so I do believe here. There we are. And then we see our UUID for the device that we actually had tied to that site that we created, right? So this is matching up and looking good, right? There's nothing else that's kind of available there. So that looks good. All we need to do next is just say add. And we could say custom settings if we want to. And then that's it. So here we'll see if this gets going. We did, and I will fully admit, we've had some issues in the past a little bit with vManage tying up. It's more so to do with our instance of vManage than globally. You should be fine on this on your own. Yeah, I think we do have some issues with our particular instance. But what would happen then at that point is we would see it generate inside our SD-WAN, our Megaport portal right here. And because it's essentially what it's doing is it's doing API calls from vManage to Megaport and saying, hey, create this SD-WAN instance and start spinning this up. And so we would see that for the services that we were actually trying to bring live. But from there, that's pretty much it. Those are the three ways in which you can deploy C8KV via Megaport. So, and is there any questions anyone has? I'm looking at Q&A, I'm not seeing anything.
No questions today.
All right, then I think we're good. Well, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. And I hope everyone has a great rest of their week.